Good afternoon. I'm just noting that we're waiting on quorum, and as soon as we achieve quorum, we will begin our committee. Thank you, everyone, for being on time. Good afternoon. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Economic Development and Regulatory Services Committee for today, September 25th. We've been joined by council members Fletcher, Ellison, Gordon, and Cunningham, which is a quorum of our committee. I'm going to start with our consent agenda, which is essentially items 6 through 17. They include a number of rental license reinstatements and rental license conditions, as well as business license operating conditions and business plan amendments. I'll also note all of the regular licenses are in this consent agenda as well. I'd like to move the consent agenda and make sure that item number 17 is referred to HPD. That will be taken up in the Housing Policy Committee, which is the Inclusionary Zoning Affordability Enforcement Ordinance. So I am moving the consent agenda with a change and referral on item 17. Are there any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are approved. We'll move on to our public hearing agenda, starting with item number 1. Ms. Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 1 is for Norway House, doing business as Norway House. It's located at 913 East Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis. They're requesting an on-sale wine with strong beer license Class B. This space that they are occupying is formerly the Ingebrigtsen restaurant. So they have made some significant improvements to that establishment to have what they are going to be operating as a 512 square feet space on the first floor. It's going to have 36 indoor seats for patrons and 12 seats outside on a private patio. They're going to be operating with a full menu and a full service restaurant. And their hours of operation will be Tuesday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and their exterior hours will be the same. Class B license allows for music and live music and recorded music without any limitation of musicians, and allows for dancing. Because this is a new license, there's a public hearing that's required, and notices were sent out to property owners and residents within 600 feet of the premises. We've received 2 responses, one in support, one in had concerns about alcohol service in the area. This license has been reviewed by police licensing and by lead inspector Mohammed Ishmael, and we're making a recommendation to approve this license at this time.
Are there any questions for staff on item number 1? If not, I'm just wondering if you could answer the question in the public comment from one of the neighbors regarding live and amplified music being played in the outdoor seating area, or will it be only inside?
It will only be inside.
Okay. And did someone get back to this young lady and tell her that?
We will make sure that that's happened. I believe it did, but I will make sure it happens.
Thank you.
Yes.
Further questions on item number 1? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 1, which is a on-sale wine and strong beer Class B license for the Norway House. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Please step forward if you are and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, that's very live. I'm Jenna Papke. I'm the cafe manager for Norway House, which is located at 913 East Franklin Avenue.
And my name is Christina Carlton, and I'm the executive director for Norway House.
Great.
So we're just excited to be expanding our menu options, and we do operate kind of like an event space. So we're excited to be able to offer this to organizations that are in the immediate area. So yeah.
Norway House is a cultural nonprofit bringing Norwegian culture, contemporary Norwegian culture, to Minnesota, which, as I found out yesterday, there's 850,000 people in this state that have Norwegian heritage. So,
Right now we have a gallery and a little gift shop as well. So in that kaffebod, as we call it in Norwegian.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and what a wonderful project. Congratulations to you.
thank you to Mr. Ishmael for being so helpful.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Ellison.
Madam Chair, I would like to move approval of item number 1.
Item number 1 has been moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. Again, thank you for being here today. We'll move on to item number 2, Ms. Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 2 is by the applicant Moksha Yoga Minneapolis LLC. The DBA is Seed Cafe. The address is 3252B West Lake Street. The location is formerly used as the Holiday Video and the Tidal Wave stores. They are making an application for an on-sale wine and strong beer license with Class E entertainment for a full-service restaurant. The premises is located in a shopping center of a one-story building. The total square footage of the premises is about 1,500 feet, and it has interior seating for 50 seats inside. It has an outdoor patio on private property for 10 seats. As I mentioned, it's a full-service restaurant, and it will be open daily from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. This is a new license, and public hearing notices were sent to property owners and residents within 600 feet of the premises. We've received no responses to that public hearing notice. Lead License Inspector Julie Casey is making a recommendation at this time to approve this license.
Are there any questions for Ms. Roberts on item number 2? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 2. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Good afternoon. Welcome. Please,
thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Phil Doucette. Seed Cafe is 3252 West Lake Street.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, we're a new plant-based restaurant offering healthy and nutritious food and some tasty treats as well. And it's located right next door to our yoga studio. So when the space became available, we decided to try to jump on this dream we've had for 12 years to offer plant-based food to wherever we live.
We're laughing because although this is in my ward, and probably I would maybe say something, I have a colleague who is chomping at the proverbial plant bit to get to you. So,
Awesome.
so did you have a question for the applicant, Councilmember Cunningham, or you're just so excited you want to move approval?
I actually just want to say thank you. There's not a whole bunch of vegan places to be able to get some good food around here, so I'm very excited about that. And Madam Chair, I would like to motion approval of
So
this.
as soon as we're done with the public hearing, I will call on you for that.
I am so excited about this.
Yeah, well, we're in soft opening for food, so come on by anytime.
I'll tell you where that is in case you're wondering.
We're open at 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. right now all week. As we train more kitchen people, and till 4 p.m. for grab and go. and there's lots of healthy, and there's no fake meat. It's all whole, beautiful food. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. Everybody. It's not just for vegans.
Well, thank you very much
Yeah.
for being here
Thank you
today.
so much.
Congratulations to
Thank
you.
you.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Council Member Cunningham.
Madam Chair, I would like to move approval of this item.
Approval has been moved for item number 2, which is the Seed Cafe. This is an on-sale wine and strong beer Class E license. Are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on then to item number 3. Ms. Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 3 is from applicant AtoZ Tobacco, Inc., doing business as AtoZ Tobacco. It's located at 3052 First Avenue South, and the requested license is for an extended hours license. This is so that it operates outside of their current approved hours, which are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. If this license is approved, they would like to be open to the public until 12 a.m. A public hearing is required for this application, and notices were sent to residents and property owners within 300 feet of the property. We received 1 response in support. Inspector Amanda Chavez was the applicant that reviewed this for minimum standards, is making a recommendation to approve it this time.
Are there any questions for Ms. Roberts on item number 3? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 3, which is a late night or extended hours license for AtoZ Tobacco. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Joseph Zurka. My pronouns are he, him, and his. So, little heads up, I'm a gopher, right? I'm a Minnesota resident and newly titled as a business owner. We currently have a gas station at, my address, 3052 First Avenue South. We currently have a gas station, 3050 First Avenue South, and my dad's had that for about 20 years now. And due to his illness, I kind of jumped on in after I finished my degree over at the U. And by the help of the amazing Amanda Chavez, Inspector Amanda Chavez, we were able to get our tobacco license within our gas station. I just want to stress that, we have amazing employees at our store. We've had 1 employee since 2003, Glinda. She's amazing, been our manager, and another one since 2011. We do card every individual that walks within our store. And we understand that beginning on October 1st, the legal age to buy tobacco in the city of Minneapolis is going to be 21. All my employees have been trained on that. There's actually a little test that we took online, as well as I have signage ready to go for that as well. And all my employees are excited for potentially more hours at the end of the day. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony and for being here today. Congratulations on helping move into your family's business. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Ellison.
Madam Chair, I would like to move approval. Also, I really appreciate all the due diligence and you kind of articulating that to us. It's pretty exciting to hear. So with that, I'd like to move approval of item number 3.
Approval of item number 3 has been moved. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to item number 4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 4 is from applicant Bar Pizza LLC, doing business as Good Times. It's located at 322 West 38th Street, and it was formerly a Peter Pan Cleaners. The requested license is for an on-sale wine strong beer license with Class E entertainment. The premises is located on a 1-story building on the corner of 38th Street and Grand Avenue South in South Minneapolis. There's approximately 1,100 square feet for seating for 30 people in this establishment, and there's no outdoor area. The business will be run as a full-service restaurant, and the entertainment allowed is background entertainment. And again, I mentioned there was no outdoor area. Public hearing is required for this establishment, and residents and property owners within 600 feet were given notice. We've received 9 responses, 8 in support, and 1 in support or a concern of parking in nearby schools. I think when we get 8 in written responses in support is pretty impressive, and concur with Lead Inspector Julie Casey as she did her minimum qualifications for the establishment, that the recommendation is for approval.
Are there any questions for Ms. Roberts on item number 4? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 4, which is an on-sale Class E license for Good Times at 322 West 38th Street. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Franz Gilbertson, and we're working on opening Good Times at 322 West 38th Street in South Minneapolis. It'll be a fast casual pizza spot specializing in a particular type of pizza, in addition to popcorn and ice cream cones and various beverages. So that's the plan.
Well, congratulations. Thank you for making it this far and for being here today. We appreciate your
Thank you.
testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. We'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move approval of this item.
Item number 4 has been moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to our last public hearing in the 9th Ward. Ms. Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last public hearing is from applicant Carrie Booney, doing business as Carrie Booney Cafe. Carrie Booney is Swahili for welcome. They are making an application at 1418 East Lake Street for a Sidewalk Cafe at a restaurant that they have built in a newly constructed space. They've been there since August of 2018. The space of the Sidewalk Cafe is for, I'm sorry, I'm looking for that. 10 tables and 20 chairs, so for 20. It has been reviewed for my minimum standards by the inspector, who is Jennifer Baird, and by Public Works. There's a public hearing that's required. Notices were sent to property owners and residents within 300 feet, and we've received no responses, and Jennifer Baird is making application or recommendation of approval.
Are there any questions for Ms. Roberts on item number 5? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 5, which is a Sidewalk Cafe license. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Cano.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would like to move this item forward.
Item number 5 has been moved for approval. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Our remaining item is a quick update by Mr. Magrino on rental tiering changes after sale update. Many of you probably recall there were some concerns by members of the community with regard to how we handle tier changes after there's been a sale of the property, and I understand the good folks in Reg Services have been looking into this and offered to do a report, and I thought that was probably a good idea, given that was an issue we had discussed in committee, and Mr. Magrino, who does the work, is here to give the report. Mr. Magrino, thank you for your time today.
Yes, thank you. I'll just let this load up here. It might take a second. It's a pretty short presentation. I think you might have received some information about it. But I'm Nick Magrino, Legal Coordinator in Regulatory Services. So Regulatory Services, which runs the city's rental licensing program, implemented a series of tiered rental licenses several years ago. Previously, with rental properties that were Tier 3, if they were sold to new owners, the tier would stick with the property. And so we evaluated that and decided that based on a number of conditions, which are still loading up here on the computer, we would allow properties to move to Tier 1. And I think we're going here. Got it. So it is fairly rigorous. This is kind of aimed towards folks who have a larger portfolio of properties and who haven't had a lot of code issues. Happy to stand for any questions that you may have about the policy change.
Maybe you could just go through kind of what we used to do, why people were upset about it before I could articulate it, but it probably sounds better coming from you.
Yeah, so we used to not allow people to change tiers. It was based on the property rather than the property owner. And so if you were to, say, take over some properties that weren't in great shape and had a bad history, we would still continue to bill you at the previous tier 3 amount, and you know, have more intense inspections, but you know, mostly there was that increased fee. And so now we're reevaluating that and allowing people, if they meet all these conditions, to be able to go down to the lower price tier.
So it basically doesn't mean that the specific property that they bought that was tier 3, that would obviously have citations for noncompliance. It's about the owner and whether or not they have other properties that have been noncompliant.
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So Reg Services was trying to get a sense of what people thought about that, which is why they brought it forward today. Does anyone have any comments about this, especially those of you that deal with rental licensing a lot? Councilmember Ellison.
I think this is, I'm excited by the potential to sort of move in this direction. Just wanted to get some clarification because I can't remember who, but somebody was concerned that we're going to be making sure that that before we change the tier, that we are, that the property actually has been improved, right? And that somebody doesn't just kind of automatically, the building doesn't just change tier arbitrarily just because of the sale. So we're trying not to punish new buyers, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we don't leave tenants sort of on the sort of out to dry in this process. And so I guess that's not really a question, but just a concern that had been kind of vocalized to me. If you wanted to clarify or address at all.
Chair Goodman, Council Member Ellison. So, I think one of the reasons that this was initially set up this way is that, properties sometimes do change hands a lot, and there might be a lot of different LLCs, there might be different shell companies, and it wasn't always kind of clear, is there a new owner, is there not a new owner? And so we stuck to the tiers with the properties to sort of get at that. And this is something that we think will help deal with that.
The other thing I just want to mention, and this comes from someone who doesn't have a lot of tier 2 and 3 properties in my ward. I was surprised to hear what it would take to go from a tier 1 to tier 2. So for example, in Harrison, I have a property owner in Bryn Mawr who also owns some property in Harrison. They didn't pay their bill on time, and one of their tenants had an expired tab. And that bumped them from tier 1 to a tier 2. And when that happens, they don't tell you why you're bumped to a tier 2 until you pay the higher fee. And then they tell you, and sometimes they don't even tell you the real exact reason. We had to dig to find out what it was. And so it could often be not building issues. It could be late payment of fees. That's a big point chunk, right? Like 15 points or something if you don't pay your bill on time. That plus one other thing could push you into a lower tier, and it might not have anything to do with maintenance in the building. And I would guess conduct on premise probably plays into it too. Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much. I just want to drill down a little bit on some of these bullet points. So no properties with citations for non-compliance within the last 2 years. That means you could have a citation for something, but you took care of it. But if you had a citation and it said, get your grass cut in 10 days, and you didn't get it cut in 10 days, and they came back and gave you another citation and a fine, then that would be a ding that would prohibit you from getting to tier 1?
Chair Goodman, Councilmember Gordon. So if you, in that specific situation for cutting grass, that's not technically an administrative citation. That's a nuisance abatement issue.
Okay.
So that wouldn't be an administrative citation that would fall into that.
I guess, so what would be an administrative citation example that would be fairly minor? I'm looking for, it seems like 2 years for one citation for noncompliance is a pretty, could be we could look at somebody and we could say, oh, you've had one other rental property for 35 years and you've really had a good record, and now you're buying a second one. You're rescuing a tier 3, you're going to fix it up now and expand, and I don't know if I would want one ding on your record to mean, okay, you're going to have to start at tier 3. So I'm trying to understand, peeling paint.
Yeah, so those are the types of violations that you might get an administrative citation for.
So you were late painting your house, and then you end up getting, that's considered non-compliance, and so you get a second citation?
It is intended to be a fairly high bar.
I understand that. You know, I mean, so my feedback would be, let's be careful about that. What about 1 year of a perfectly clean record? I don't know. Is there a way to look at what it means? Delinquent rental license fees too, could be, you were 2 days late?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
okay.
correct. Yeah.
So that's just kind of my feedback is I appreciate where we're going with this. I think the objective criteria that we need to determine whether or not you're, you know, worthy of getting a tier 1 redo, something to keep thinking about. You know, I know you're thinking about it all, but you came here asking for feedback, and so I gave you a little bit. Thanks.
Yeah, noted. Thank you.
Mr. Magrino, do you have to meet all of these criteria exactly, or is this just what staff take into consideration?
Chair Goodman, you do have to meet all of the criteria on there.
Well, how many people can meet all that criteria?
I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head, but there are a lot of property owners that we don't really have issues with. That, you know, if they were the folks who were buying some of these properties, they would fall into this category.
Okay. Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair Goodman. Looking at this, I see the rationale behind it. I see the logic, and I think in a lot of ways it makes a lot of sense. I understand why the thing that we want to have happen is for properties that are being poorly maintained to be purchased by people who will maintain them better, and we want to kind of incentivize that. I'm wondering here, if we think the impact is going to be that this incentivizes people to do that, if this takes some of the onus off of a tier 3 property for someone who has a good record, a good track record of doing this, or if by sort of taking the stigma off of a tier 3 property, do we raise the sale price for the bad landlord? Do we make it, you know, more appealing for purchase and essentially, you know, take away what's at least part of the punishment for having badly managed a property? So have we sort of thought about how we think this is actually going to play out in the marketplace of transactions between property owners?
Chair Goodman and Council Member Fletcher, I think that's possible. I mean, if you were selling a property and if you have an experienced rental owner who's very familiar with the tier setup that we have, and they know that they're going to potentially be paying a higher tier fee for a few years because they don't meet those conditions, yeah, that would, I imagine, be something they would take into consideration for the sale price.
Okay. And then, and just as a follow-up question, kind of adding on to this question about meeting all of these criteria, I am a little bit ambivalent about creating a policy that only exists for people who already own 5 properties, right? It feels like sort of creating a level of privilege for people who already have privilege. And if we're thinking about equity and ownership opportunities as one of the main goals that we talk about when we get together as a council, you know, creating lower barriers to entry for the people who are already all the way in, you know, isn't always the way we want to think about this work. I understand the push-pull of that, right? Because having I could imagine that a first-time property manager has a lower likelihood of success in turning a property around than someone who's shown that they can do it. I get why there's a reason to look at it this way, but I'll admit to being a little bit ambivalent about the way this is structured, and I'd wonder if there's a way that we could create a pathway into this for first-time property owners who meet some other kind of alternative criteria, or if there's, you know, some way of making this so that it isn't a way of sort of reinforcing a status that's only available to people who already own a lot of property.
And yeah, definitely we'll take that concern into consideration. I would say part of that is due to we do want to have sort of a track record with some of these folks, because in situations, as I was saying earlier, where you maybe do have, you know, just hypothetically shell companies or LLCs, or maybe you're signing the property over to, do you want to add? Oh, go for it.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Fletcher, I will say that the management company is ensuring that there is a portfolio for those that have 5 properties or larger, but then it wouldn't be required for those that are under 5 properties. So that'd be the entry. And then right now we have 35 properties that do qualify, that will be having letters sent to the owners. Thank you.
Did you follow that? I'm not sure I followed that. So you're saying if they have to have a management company if their portfolio is bigger than 5 properties,
Yes.
not that you have to have at least 5 properties. Okay.
Right, right. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I wasn't sure if that's what you were saying, so I just want, so I'm concerned about like, I'm concerned about the fact that we're trying to get average people, like Mr. Magrino, to buy a property, a NOAA property in particular, with all of the resources we have available now for small-scale NOAA property. I'm just using you as an example because you're my constituent and standing in front of me. And you could easily buy, maybe you could, a 4, 5, 6-unit building somewhere, and you could operate it as a NOAA property and forget to pay your fee once because you're new and you're young, even if you worked in the city. That would immediately not allow you to take this stage tier 2 or 3 NOAA property and bring it to a tier 1. I mean, there are reasons why sometimes people have a delinquent fee or maybe have something that they don't comply with, like the tenant's tabs, that cause you to have a problem. So had we thought about like how we would handle that kind of thing? Those are just in your mind like disqualifiers, because how are we going to get people to buy these NOAA properties that are tier 2 and tier 3 if we make them stay in tier 2 or tier 3 even if they're a new owner? Either one's good.
And I guess I would say again that it was intended to be a fairly high bar. And I would also stress that you would be able to go back to tier 1 if you do manage the properties appropriately
For 1 year?
Yeah. So this is kind of just that immediate pricing difference for upfront when you buy the properties.
Okay. Councilmember Ellison.
Just wanted to say, like, with the last 2 bullet points, and I think folks are kind of getting at this, what would we be significantly lowering the bar if we put that instead of 2 years if we brought it down to 1? So just a question, and maybe even a consideration, since we're just kind of receiving this not for the first time, but on the dais for the first time and discussing it. So
And before you answer too, we asked just simply to see it for feedback, where I do not want to be in a position to direct them to do anything.
Yeah.
I just think that's fair. They immediately, the staff got on this issue and attempted to resolve it. And I thought it was great. They attempted to resolve it.
Yeah.
And I think you could take our feedback and do nothing with it or do something with it, but you're not asking us for approval. This is a staff level decision, just to be clear.
Right.
Correct, everyone?
Yeah, that point is well taken. So, yep.
But go ahead and answer.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that we would potentially be open to.
But yet, I think they do want to have a high bar. I understand that. We don't want, Mr. Magrino stands in front of us when people are getting their licenses revoked primarily. So he wants to have a high standard so he doesn't have to come to us where licenses are being revoked, because he understands, like everybody else does, and the whole department, what happens to tenants when licenses are revoked as well. So they're looking at it a little bit probably more holistically in terms of their workload too. Other questions or comments for Mr. Magrino? Councilmember Gordon?
I think whatever you end up landing on, it might be interesting to come back in a year or something and give us some information about whether it seemed like this worked for a number of people or didn't work for very many. I think even with the high bar, we may end up, it works just fine for lots of people and we see it moving forward, but and probably 1 year or 2 years wouldn't make a big difference. But I think especially if it looked like a lot of people weren't able to do it because we set something a little bit too high, and we end up, in your opinion or other people's opinion, thinking they probably would have been good landlords, but look what we didn't let that happen. It'd be good to hear about those numbers. So that's just an idea, because it's really hard for us to predict what difference it's going to make without any information.
Yeah, we can put that on the calendar.
So I'll just note that before today, they weren't letting anyone have a drop in their tier at all. So they've created a process. We're not going to let the fabulous get in the way of the good, which is an immediate reaction to the public hearing where there were concerns about this issue, and staff came up with a concern, and I really appreciate the give and take conversation that we've had with them and encourage them to go about doing their job as to the best of their ability based on the feedback you heard today. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to move to receive and file Mr. Magrino's report. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item has been received and filed. Seeing no further business before us, we stand adjourned.